Hi, thanks for joining us on this historic moment in India's Web3 space. This video shows the official signing of Autonomy Network's partnership with T-Hub, India's leading innovation incubator. Hope you enjoy the video.
So, Prasad Garu, this is the event I had told you about, that we'll be having this small ceremony on 5th, which is today, right now. So this is a MOU signing between T-Hub and this new company called Autonomy, who are a middleware company related to Web 3.0. And they have already got some very interesting traction amongst the user communities. So I'll request them to speak more. Then we'll follow a particular sequence of this event. And we will also ask you to share briefly what is Antil's interest in Web3, Meta, and so on and so forth.
Sure, sir.
So what next? What is the sequence? Okay, some sequence for there.
Can we do the MOU signing first and then start with
Whatever sequence you have there.
so you'll be signing on our behalf?
You have to sign.
Can we take photo?
Yes. Actually, all of you can come in the frame. I think the picture.
Thank you.
You can go back and take a picture.
Jayesh, come.
Instead, there are more people here.
Yes.
Thank you. In the sequence, it's also gives some opportunity to.
So I would request our CEO, Mr. Mahankali Srinivas Rao, MS, we call him MSR, to speak a few words of how it started, and yes, that would help us in context setting as well.
I think we all know that.
For the benefit of Prasad, maybe.
Prasad Garu, can you hear me?
Yes, Andy, I can hear you very well.
Yeah. So I think obviously we all know about 3.0 is all about transferring control back to the user and moving from centralization part of it. And spread here must play a role in orchestrating this whole around with 3.0. And this we need I think it's good to be.
Srinivas Garu, your voice is fading away. Can you come closer to the mic, please? Sorry.
No, it didn't work. I don't. No, it's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, much better. Thanks.
I was saying that we've been we've always identified one or two what I call horizon 2 areas. One is obviously whatever we've been doing earlier in areas like health tech, mobility, and so on. And obviously, the whole thing around Web 3.0 is going to become increasingly critical. Everything around the metaverse, metaverse, blockchain, digital cash, and all of that. So we were engaged with Santosh now for close to 4 months. And we do believe this is a good first step where we can work closely with Autonomy in helping building out the community. And the intent is to position Hyderabad, Telangana, and obviously T-Hub to be the go-to place where we set up thought leadership around Web 3.0 and create a community. And obviously, obviously the funding angle, the market access angle, also working with how do we work with government. Jayesh Garu is here. How do we start getting some use cases into government and type of thing. So from that standpoint, I think it's a great start. Look forward to a lot more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So next, because we had a launch on the 28th of June, and when the minister was here, he also in one of his interviews said how Web 3.0 is a state priority now. So I will request Sir Jayesh Ranjan sir to speak.
Maybe let I speak.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Santosh Garu and Prasad Garu speak.
So Santosh has been he brought this idea to us few months back, and we have other Web 3.0 startups here who are also keen, but I think that triggered the thought process. And yes, definitely up to you, Santosh, and please enlighten us.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think I met Prasad as well when he started his journey in T-Hub. I've always been a community guy. Looking back, in the hindsight, I'm telling you a story probably because I'm able to visualize it now in the hindsight. But when I started, that was the natural thing for me. I loved communities, loved building them, I loved engaging them. And after that, I moved to venture capital. In 2016, what I observed is I always felt startup, irrespective of where it is, or an innovator, irrespective of where he is, should be able to be on the same platform with respect to the ability to raise capital or the ability to scale a startup. But unfortunately, the world didn't work like this. I had this opportunity to move. I actually started my journey right here. I was the head of community for T-Hub when it just started. And then I had a chance to go to different places and observe how different communities were getting built. And I felt it's unfair that a startup in India, which is probably doing pretty good work, gets 10x less value just because it is in a different city, unlike Silicon Valley. And I never stood by that. I also never got to understand if we are building businesses on the internet, these are all digital native businesses. However, for these digital native businesses to have ownership as a paper stack always was limited, right? So if I were to raise capital from somebody sitting in the US, I probably have to sign a bunch of paper stuff. And the ownership is in the paper. And I cannot onboard shareholders more than 200 in India or 2000 per se in US. I felt this problem is going to get solved somehow. I felt internet would actually solve it. So my immediate company before I actually moved to the platform was called f6f.com. It's one of the world's largest platforms for founders. We used to connect startups to investors and all the community. The discovery used to happen online, but everything else used to happen offline. And I felt the natural extension for that is crowdfunding on the internet, but I was wrong. I was looking at this space called space from 2016 around early Ethereum times. And in 2016 and 2017, I remember this industry, which is started by engineers, innovators, and young people, probably disrupted a 100-year-old industry. That's venture capital, right? Blockchain startups in 2017 raised more capital than venture capital industry around the world. And that's what probably prompted me to move full-time into this space. Once I moved into this space, I think different people look at this space differently, right? Because the community is the same thing, Web3, blockchain, crypto, and metaverse. Today, everybody is looking at the same thing because the community is same, but all of them mean different things, right? Our perspective the way we learned blockchain is we felt, okay, we had Web 1 and Web 2. We had a chance to build digital native businesses, but all these digital native businesses were controlled by centralized companies where their ownership is on a paper form, right? We felt the natural extension for this would be community-owned platforms because the current platforms have misaligned incentives. Take a Web 2 platform, for example. The creators and consumers of value today are not making the most out of this value chain. The middlemen were making most of the value chain in Web 1. And then internet platforms came and said, we are going to disrupt these middlemen. But these internet platforms became the largest middlemen, which drove misaligned incentives. We feel in Web3, we have a fantastic opportunity to actually change this and put power back into communities, users, in the hands of people who actually create value. That's what prompted us to start Autonomy. And since we were all actually, it's not just me, I think everybody who joined Autonomy were a community builder in the past. So it was a natural extension for us. So we solved two main problems for blockchain adoption. Everybody talks about, okay, I'll just clarify Web3, blockchain, crypto, metaverse. How do we look at it? Because different people have different perspectives. So I'll start with Web3. We look at Web3 as web of community-owned platforms, just like how we had internet as web of centralized platforms. We look at blockchain as the technology that can drive this and become the backend, because Web3 is a backend revolution. Crypto is the fun cousin of all of this. It's where probably innovation actually starts. When I talk about this, I think this is something I want to always stress on. I think in India or across the world, regulation and innovation are always on two ends of spectrum, trying to meet the middle, right? And when they meet the middle, you probably have the aha moment. We are yet to see that for Web3 because people around the world, few regulators are super pro, few regulators are not super pro, just because there is no clarity around this, right? So crypto is a very interesting instrument which brought more people, which made a lot of people turn their eyeballs towards this space, brought the talent. So it will always stay as an integral part of Web3 and Metaverse. That's how we look at it. Coming to Metaverse. So I think today the biggest misconception around the world is about Metaverse, because one of the most overcapitalized space which is yet to take off, right? So today there is no differentiator between a game or a virtual world or a metaverse. But the way we look at metaverse is, if internet was to be a game, I think that would be metaverse. That means you have the opportunity to redesign every single experience you have on internet, right? Take, for example, moving money. When I say wallet and you close your eyes, what do you remember? You remember that wallet icon, right? And why? Or if I say, let's say cart, and you close your eyes, you think of Flipkart or Amazon or something, right? This is because in our intuition, it's already baked in that this is how the experience of moving money or moving goods into my cart would look like. But today, I think in Metaverse, we have an opportunity to redesign this entire stack. Maybe moving money from one wallet to another wallet by clicking your finger may not be the most fun thing to do. Maybe in future, we'll probably see your avatar actually transferring money to my avatar by just doing this. So all these experiences are possible on Metaverse, but this can only happen when you have a very strong infrastructural backend for it. And that's what Web3 is enabling. That's how we started Autonomy. So two main things which Autonomy solves for mass adoption of blockchain, Web3, crypto, and Metaverse is no code and transaction costs. So today, only people who can code, people who understand the space are exposed to this. We want to solve that. So we built a no-code infrastructure where anybody who is running a community can actually come to Autonomy, use Autonomy's infrastructure, which is a full stack infrastructure. That means today you have either blockchains or dApps. We are a full stack infrastructure, which allows communities to use this and build tokens, use these tokens to grow, engage, and monetize their communities. This is the no-code part of Autonomy. The second part is the transaction costs. Today, not every application has to be on blockchain because blockchain is very costly. There are only few use cases which work very well for blockchain, but look at from a consumer or a user perspective. The challenge is two things. One, high transaction costs, and two, uncertainty of transaction costs. Probably we can abstract the cost of high transaction costs by building a lot of blockchains, but uncertainty of transaction costs, that means it can be $1 today, it can be $10 tomorrow, is a no-go for a mainstream user, right? I cannot imagine my dad or my mom actually using this. They use Paytm today, but I think if they were to use a blockchain wallet, they would say, why do I have to pay $10 just to send you money? I think that's something we solve with full stack infrastructure. These two pillars work as the core to actually bring any community on board. And T-Hub coming on board is a great validation for us. We built this entire open source stack in Lab 32 Batch 5. We were called Singular Chain. That's still our engineering company. Our open source stack is called Autonomy Network. Autonomy is not owned by anybody. None of us can actually control Autonomy 100%. It is community owned. It will be community owned, We started as open source, and as this process is called progressive decentralization. What differentiates a Web2 startup from a Web3 startup? Every startup has to have a product that people want to use. It needs to have a business model that is sustainable. This is probably the commonality between Web2 and Web3. But Web3 startups have another aspect that it needs to have an economic model that can bring network effects to one and two. This is something none of our entrepreneurs or innovators, including all of us, were not exposed to. We always build business models, revenue models. We've never built economic models. I think over time, as you build this skill set, you will start seeing talent which can actually A/B test economic models for you, which was never seen, right? I think that is super exciting. What really worked very well for us is I felt I think the funda is if we couldn't make our home utilize the technology we're building, I don't think we could convince any other customer to use it. So we actually came to T-Hub. We approached T-Hub to see what we can do about Web3. But I think MSR was really proactive. The conversation started with CBDCs, unlike Web3. So I am on the other end of extreme. So I was of the opinion CBDCs is a very enterprises use case, and innovators are actually on the fun side of things. So we were thinking about CBDC versus Web3, and Web3 gained the momentum. And I think MSR was agile enough to say this is something what our community wants, and we want to take the front foot forward and launch this. And since then, I think everything took off really fast. T-Hub worked like a startup. It had the momentum even faster than us as we were busy building. I think this is the best time. Now we have a product. And also another fundamental we wanted to inculcate is we will not build any technology or market any technology which we will not use ourselves. So T-Hub using this technology and building Web3 along with Autonomy is the first pilot through which our infrastructure gets exposed to the community. And we have some of the largest communities in the waitlist right now. We have a pet community backed by Pedigree family looking to get onboarded. We have some of the largest media companies in India looking to use us. All of these companies are in waitlist. They will only come on board to Autonomy after T-Hub community adopts to it. With that, I thank Jayesh sir and Ms. sir. And also Suvida. I think without her, none of this would be possible. And lastly, my team. I don't think I have to thank them because they're like my family.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Good morning, and firstly, congratulations, Jayesh Garu, MSR, and Santosh. I think, firstly, the name Autonomy, I think, is fantastic. It's like it's in the right spirit of Web 3.0, right? So, I think some of you know me. I run a venture capital firm, one of the few in Hyderabad. We were the first inhabitants of T-Hub. When it was just getting built, we had a nice office, corner office, where everybody was saying, "Oh, how did you get this?" Because we were the first to come there. But being in Hyderabad, I think one of the things that we focused on is primarily around media and entertainment, and that's why you see some of these film reels at the back, which are repurposed as paintings. So I think we take pride in understanding media technology. And what we did was over the last 5 years, we went from media technology, which is mostly filmed entertainment, to consumer brands and to consumer enablement technologies. So we found that there's an interesting circle there where each platform and the brand and technology can feed off each other. Antil is we don't call ourselves as a VC because we feel we are a speed scaling ecosystem. Two words are very important for us: speed and scale. We do that through corporate partnerships primarily. So what we do is we help companies, with the marketing and the sales side. We don't touch the product nor the team. Those two come with the investment. So capital, marketing, and sales. We have more than 100 corporate partnerships through which we do the sales distribution. Web 3.0 has been in discussion for a while within our teams. And this year, we took a stand and said, okay, this is high time that we should get into it. Primarily focused around media tech. We wanted to have an area of focus where we could help the companies. So it's a $50 million fund that we are floating along with Woodstock, which we will soon announce. It's still not in the news, so please don't quote me. As soon as we sign all the documentation, we're going to announce that. It's focused on early stage Web 3.0 companies, or even Web 2.0 moving to Web 3.0. That also is very interesting for us to look at. Okay, which could be, and there's a lot happening. I mean, all of us know that. I think movies in theaters move to OTT, and then soon Metaverse is going to be a very engaging way to create content and have people interact with their characters, with the stars that they like. So we feel this is a huge opportunity for a media company specifically, in terms of content creation, in terms of interaction, because the way we consume entertainment is going to change in the metaverse, right? And I think, and also you have an ability to earn in the Web 3.0 versus we couldn't do that in Web 2.0. I mean, there are a few companies like Instagram and Facebook which made all the money, but here now the community is very, very important, and the community building aspect is the most important in Web 3.0. So we're going to run a program just like how we do in Antil Studio every year for about 10 to 12 companies. We will fund them. We will sign checks of about $150,000 to $200,000 initially, and then watch them as they grow for about 6 months, and then do a larger check. So about 10% of the fund is focused on early stage, very early stage seed, and then the remaining fund is reserved for pre-series A and series A. So, and it's a completely global fund. It doesn't need to be an Indian company. It could be registered in Dubai, Singapore, India, wherever. The idea is that we provide market access and connections in India and Asia, Southeast Asia. So we're based out of Singapore, India, Israel, and the US. So I'll stop here and see if any of you have any questions.
No, I think, Prasad Garu, I think obviously, this is the first step we are doing in putting together a community. So first of all, we should take advantage of the fact that you are based here. So I'd like you to, come over and, we have several other entities also now building out interesting plays in the Web 3.0 space, right? One. And second is, love for you to come here and do a session on opportunities in the, as you see it, tell him about the VC, also opportunities in the Web 3.0 space, right? What are you seeing, and what are the kinds of opportunities many of our entrepreneurs can pivot to capitalize on this? We are also setting up in this building. One of the things we wanted to do was to have all the ecosystem players under one roof, right? So essentially, obviously, the entrepreneurs are in the center of everything, but also industry bodies, the funding ecosystem, which, as you know, we are relatively challenged compared to the Bangalore's and the Bombays and the Delhis. And we are making a very conscious effort to get more funding activity here. So we've actually created a VC zone in the building. Right? We are asking all VCs to come in here, use the space at no cost, right? So they have access to a few seats, access to the meeting rooms, conferencing facilities, and can do knowledge sharing, which is, everything which you would normally do, type of thing. So want to use this opportunity to extend that to you. We'll connect separately.
Fantastic.
And, we'll love to have you help us drive this as well.
Thank you so much, MSR. In fact, Jayesh here also extended that invite. Would love to come there. We'll fix a time. I'll reach out to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I would also like to convey my appreciation and congratulations for this partnership between T-Hub and Autonomy. So when Suvida was mentioning that when on the inaugural ceremony, our minister also pointed out in one of his interviews that Web 3.0 is very, very important. It is important not just for us, but in the current scenario, it is a very globally relevant kind of a concept, because if you look at the world order, the way governance is being promoted, we see more and more centralization. We see more and more capture of institutions, power. I'm not referring to any particular country or so, but we see it happening in India more than ever before. And therefore, this drive that we empower the communities, they take control of everything. So what is going to happen in the internet world, the digital world, in many ways is a reflection of what should happen in the real world also. In the past, the real world used to drive changes in the digital world or in other spheres. Nowadays, we are looking at how the trend is set by the digital world, and then you adopt the best practices, the good things which emerge out of the digital life into the real life. So in that sense, this is very important. Of course, it is an area which is today taking lots of talent. It is possibly creating lots of wealth. It is driving the economy. So from a pure economic point of view also, this is an area of opportunity for us. Any state, any government which is growing, which wants to make its economy much more diverse and vibrant, etc. This is an important area to get into. So that is our interest. And you mentioned this, Santosh, in your remarks, that there is still a kind of a dichotomy between innovation and regulation. And this is precisely where we want to step in. In fact, actually, as a matter of fact, on the day the T-Hub facility was inaugurated, our plan was to announce a sandbox, a regulatory sandbox on Web 3.0. But unfortunately, we were not able to do the background work in time, and therefore that announcement could not happen that day. And therefore, the minister only spoke about his intention, but we could not announce something very concrete on that day. But nevertheless, our interest to set up that regulatory sandbox as early as possible is very much there. We had about 10 days ago some kind of an internal brainstorming, and hopefully it's a matter of maybe a few weeks before this regulatory sandbox is formally announced. And I'm very happy that, see, everything else which needs to support an institution of that kind seems to be in place. There's a huge community altogether. In fact, I was informally telling Santosh that about a few months earlier, maybe 4 months earlier or so, I was invited to a Web 3.0 community event. So I had gone there with no expectations, thinking that it will be just a small table and 5-6 people will be there. And anyway, I had not thought anything beyond that. But when I went there, I found that there was no standing space. There was a huge hall full of people, and there was such an overwhelming response that they had to open the next hall and put chairs there. So I was literally, it was unbelievable for me that there is so much of traction happening in Web 3.0. So obviously the developer community is interested, but user groups are also very, very interested. And companies like yours, you have shown commitment to democratize it even further. The no-code strategy that you're speaking about, that is wonderful. And most importantly, the VC community is also willing to support it. So we just heard Prasad Garu, he mentioned a big figure which he's going to put. Of course, it's not public, so that is not well too much about the size of the fund, etc. But nevertheless, the interest and the commitment is there. And we also have a similar commitment. Again, it kind of slipped my mind. I didn't realize that we can do this virtual thing also. I could have invited someone from Sequoia also. So they also have shown interest. Actually, this whole idea came with a very initial conversation we had with them, with Mr. Rajan Anandan, with Mr. Mohit Bhatnagar, and Shweta, who is the board member on our V-Hub. And they actually told us, we were interacting with us to understand in which direction the funding is going to go. And they also said the same thing, that we are getting lots of very interesting pitches from Web 3.0 startups, etc. And looking at the global trend, this is where most of our venture money is going to go. But he also mentioned that we are very skeptical about India. Exactly the hint which Prasad Garu alluded to, that you can be registered in Dubai, Singapore. One of the reasons people are preferring to register in Dubai and Singapore is better regulatory environment, which is lacking in India. So we took that signal when Prasad said now, and when Ranjan and others had told us that funding is available, but unfortunately it's going to go to Singapore and Dubai. So that got us thinking that why should we not seize on that opportunity? Of course, unfortunately, at the national government level itself, there is lots of ambivalence about this. The RBI, there is a huge pushback against these kind of things, strongly against crypto, and in the process, there is some kind of discredit happening to blockchain as well. Finance Minister in her budget speech, on the other hand, has spoken about taxes, like people who gain from crypto transactions will be taxed. So it's like two arms of the government at cross purposes, etc. But we still felt that while some clarity will emerge at the national level at some point in time, as a state, we can also take some initiatives, and to that extent, we can become the trendsetter, or we can become the forerunner, so to say. So this is what is the big announcement today, that we will be setting up a regulatory sandbox. And as I said, some internal discussions happened recently, but we would now like to get ideas from others also. So actually, the practitioners should tell us what is the grayness which they are finding in approvals, permissions, licenses. What are the apprehensions they have? What do they think will be kind of not allowed at all? What will be taken off? What could be potentially even criminalized?
Correct.
So unfortunately, I mean, since I see Karthik, and I have interacted in the past on hemp, how does one use hemp for different purposes? So, because my interest was for industrial purposes, how do you cultivate hemp to make all kinds of industrial products? But we have not been able to proceed much because, again, due to this criminalization, the laws which exist right now in some ways criminalize growing of hemp, cultivation of hemp, and usage of hemp. But obviously, in the process, it's like that old phrase that you are throwing the baby along with the bath water. So the good also is getting eliminated because you are too much worried about regulation, etc. So something very similar that we need to look at for Web 3.0. We want to make the passage easy. The importance and relevance is understood by all of us, but how do you operationalize it? How do you make it workable for people who are actually practicing this? So as I said, please offer your ideas on how to structure this regulatory sandbox, how to call for proposals, which are the national level agencies with whom we should keep a conversation or a dialogue open. Because this regulatory sandbox requires support from them as well. I mean, for them also, we are in a way solving their problem by showcasing some things which will work, some things which will not work, and so on and so forth. So I want to remain engaged with the community, and with the help of this partnership, I think we'll have access to more number of users, more number of community members, more number of developers, and also startups who are venturing into it.
Just to add, two things. We just started a dialogue with IDPRT.
Yes.
We're also going to be signing up with this IFCA from the world. With this, also this area is going to be a really.
Yeah. IBRDT is a arm of the Reserve Bank of India. So if we reach out to them in a way, indirectly we are reaching out to the RBI. So wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Prasad.
Thank you, Prasad. I'll get in touch, set up a time. I'd love to. In fact,
I stay right opposite T-Hub in my home, Bhuja. So it is just, I can see T-Hub all the time. So I'll definitely come. Next week I'm in Tel Aviv, but after that I'll come. I'll come back.
Morning coffee the week after you're back.
Sure, done. Thank you. Thank you, Jayesh.
Bye. Thanks for joining at a very short notice.